Okay, everyone, thanks for joining so far. We got a couple minutes. We'll get started right at 1. Okay, everyone, welcome to our Gaining Ground webinar. It is 1 o'clock, so we'll get started. I'm going to start with a little bit of background about the series. So we provide agriculture educators with tools and skills to better support urban food systems enterprises. So topics will focus on topics or skills that support urban food systems enterprises and programs such as this, funded by North Central SARE PDP under a project titled Capacity Building in Urban Food Systems in the North Central Region in delivering professional development and networking opportunities for urban agriculture professionals in the North Central Region. It's organized by Urban Food Systems graduate student cohorts. We each play a part in this. We do 2 per semester. And today our topic is volunteer recruitment and engagement. We're so excited to welcome Kelly Robinson of Star Farm Chicago. She's the community food and farm manager. We also have Melanie Hudgens, who's the director of social enterprises and administration at the Farmer's House, which is right here in Missouri. So I'm going to start with a little bit of an introduction for Kelly, and then Kelly, I'll give you a few minutes to talk about your farm and your role. Star Farm Chicago is a transformative urban farm and sustainable food hub located in Chicago. They promote food equity and access to fresh local produce through their mobile farm stand, home delivery initiative, and retail storefront, as well as providing local jobs, job training, and business incubation for adults with disabilities, community members facing employment barriers, and overall fostering community engagement and empowerment. Star Farm also provides on-farm workshops and family activities that build community around fresh food production in a beautiful and safe green space in an urban area. Now, Kelly is the community food and farm manager for Star Farm Chicago, managing the program side of the organization and supporting development. She has been working in the fitness and wellness industry for the past 15 years within the city of Chicago and surrounding suburbs. She has a passion for serving her community and helping to bring light to the importance of health through years of teaching fitness, nutrition, and health specifically to Black and Brown people. As a fellow grower, she knows the impact of what empowering people to take ownership of the food they're consuming can do. She loves that she can use her work to bring the community closer to empowering themselves to support their families and their community. So we have a few pictures of the farm here. Kelly, if you'd like to talk for a few minutes.
Yeah, sure. So thank you everybody for having me. Definitely glad to be here. So just kind of breaking down a little bit, going over these pictures here, just kind of showcase on the left our team. Some are past, some are present, but we're just kind of showing the collaboration that we all do together because we are a big collaborating team where, although we have executive director, we have managers and upper management and the board, we all try to bring our strengths to the team to kind of help move the mission forward. And a big thing that we do within our hiring is that we do try to promote hiring within the community because they're our biggest stakeholders. So, like, they're going to know what's going on in the community, how we should move towards our programming. So that's a really big thing that we try to implement. to make sure that we are being effective in how we are providing our programs and how we move with the direction that we're going as well. Some other pictures you may see here are just some of our volunteers, as well as our pop-up markets, because that's one thing we definitely tried to do over the years. As you know, being a big, not I'll say big, but big farm in the sense of an urban farm, people may not see us as much as you would think. We do have about 5 sites that we operate out of within the same neighborhood, but a lot of times you can come through and people say, "Oh, I never even heard of you." So we do things about the pop-up markets to kind of bring the farm to them. So we'll go to the park districts, or we'll go to schools and be able to bring up the pop-up markets there and bring the food to them, so that we can be able to still make that outreach available. Just with other pictures here, you see we do a lot of work with the youth as well. This past year, this past summer, we had about 200 youth on our farm. And that's a lot of building with partnerships. I mean, that's the biggest thing how we are able to be successful within the regards of volunteerism and also outreach is those building those partnerships, working with the Green Corps, who was able to bring about 90 students each week to our farm, where they got to get access to farm agricultural sustainability practices, and just getting a chance to kind of get their feet wet in what it is to work in farming, and specifically urban farming. And then also you may see some pictures here of just our partner here in the middle, Chef Mel. She's one of our partners that actually rents one of our sites. So she's able to grow and build her business as well, and her programming to grow her food and also move her business forward. So we really love working with her. She's always coming by saying, "Well, I got some peppers for you all." So it's just cool how those collaborations and partnerships can be super meaningful with us as well. And she's also done a lot of cooking for different programming that we have within our programs as well. So it's been cool seeing that transition and how she helps provide that service to us as well.
Cool. That's awesome to learn a little bit more about these pictures.
Yes.
I'd also like to introduce Melanie Hudgens. She's of the Farmer's House, a nonprofit with location in Weston, Platte City, and North Kansas City, right here in Missouri. Melanie has a master's in curriculum and instruction. She joined the Farmer's House in 2014 as a volunteer. Prior to that, she taught 7th grade math, English, health, and inclusionary special education. The most important part of her job is that she manages the Early Work Experience program, which is the Farmer's House's flagship program that offers vocational training to middle and high school students in social enterprises comprising markets, kitchens, and gardens, partnering with local schools and special education classes in Kansas City and surrounding areas. The Farmer's House provides these services for free, offering over 300 students a year to earn up to 200 hours of vocational experience in retail, catering, and food services and horticulture before graduation, with the goal of being prepared for competitive employment. Melanie also has expertise in nonprofit accounting, volunteer management, and fundraising. So Melanie, I have some pictures of the Farmer's House if you'd like to tell us a little bit more about your site and your work there.
Sure, it's always a pleasure to talk about the Farmer's House that I've been engaged in for the last 10 years. It was started by two moms on a mission who had, you can see John David on the left there in the lemonade stand. He's one of our inspiring farmers, if you will. So we started out having a farm location, well, across the street from the farm, there was a plot of land, and we thought, what if? And we started out with 8 students growing a few vegetables basically on the side of the road. From there, the farm location, as we know it now, became available for rent. So it kind of blossomed into a retail market. And you can see the 2 young ladies on the right, and then Anna's in the middle, of course. They have all attended early work experience programs. So in the context of our retail markets, which we now have 3, our farm location, which is open seasonally, gives the students a chance to not only learn retail skills in all areas of retail, but some gardening and also catering. And some of our best caterings have come from the homegrown vegetables that we've made. You know, we've grown out the farm and incorporated into our catering. The most popular item was potatoes, but also like our basil and rosemary and other decorative flowers for caterings, just to make them beautiful. The students basically come out once a week. We partner with 13 school districts and 18 classes, and every year the young man in the middle, he is working at our annual flower sale. So we partner up with a local business, and we purchase all the flowers from them. And then as a fundraiser for us and to kick off the farm for the season, we will have this flower sale. We also grow sunflowers out there. We've got a hoop house that since COVID, we haven't really had in operation, but we're getting ready to get that back in operation. But we have greenhouses and we've got raised beds that are accessible all around the property. And then recently, in the last couple of years, we implemented a community garden. And so we have 12 plots that are available for rent. And really, that's an opportunity for the community to come in and engage with our students and our youth, some of our adults. After early work experience is over, we hope that our students are able to find competitive employment. They kind of work through task analysis to find what their passion is, but we also offer adult day programming as well and employment services. And so both of the individuals on the right side of your screen have been successfully employed and went through our program. So that's really where our passion is to help individuals become more engaged in their community and have those natural supports.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing a little bit more about that.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this webinar structured in 3 major areas. We have a few questions about recruiting volunteers, engaging volunteers, and then retaining volunteers. So I have a few questions for each. I'm going to ask them, and then I'd like it if you could both talk for about 3 minutes apiece with your answers. And then at the very end, if we have some time, we'll do some audience Q&As. So I think we're ready to start with the first section, which is recruiting volunteers. So my first question is, urban food systems projects rely on volunteers to carry out day-to-day operations and bigger tasks. So both of you probably know how important it is to have volunteers who are interested and excited in the work. My first question is, what do you see as the biggest hurdle to volunteer recruitment? This is a big question.
I guess I'll go first. And even I was thinking about that question. I want to say like the recruitment part is not necessarily difficult. Like we get people that request, we're like, where did you find out about us? How did you hear about us? But they're very interested. I think for us, the biggest thing is like just finding that schedule that works for them. Because a lot of times we are getting lots of inquiries, but we may have a lot of people that are full-time workers. So the time we have available is usually not going to be the best time for them. So it may be weekends, and unfortunately, there's a little less opportunities for them. But one thing we did try to do specifically this fall, we created what we call volunteer field days. So we did them on Saturdays, we did them twice a month from September to November. That would then give volunteers, past or even new volunteers opportunity to come onto the farm and do some volunteering, which was pretty cool. It wasn't like a big turnout. Our last one was pretty big, and that was with a partner that we work with called Chicago Cares. And that's one thing I will say that's a definite benefit to recruitment and volunteerism is finding those amazing partnerships, because they have been essential to us getting some amazing people to come on our farm. So I think that's the biggest thing in regards to the recruitment aspect, is just finding finding where they can fit, and making a schedule that can work for them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, we have all kinds of different opportunities because it's not just about our farm location, it's in the other, because we provide social enrichment opportunities, and it's easy to find volunteers. But again, the schedule, our students are only on site from 9 to 2. Not everybody actually wants to be at the farm. It's kind of, it can be overwhelming with all the task lists. So we try to do a couple things where we have organized activities or projects that, it's easy to engage certain groups and whatnot. So that's really the important part to keeping them engaged, is to having those critical mission work activities that, make sense for everybody. And once they feel engaged, they're more than likely to come back.
Okay, so I'm hearing that you both use a variety of strategies to get new volunteers. So then my second question is there a target population for some of these strategies of people that you're hoping to recruit to bring onto the farm or on site?
You know, part of our issue too is just our location. We're in North Kansas City, so it can be kind of a drive for some corporate groups like to come out and volunteer. We've seen a great pickup in that. But we just use a variety of mediums, you know, to kind of engage people. It's people on our mailing list, but also we've partnered up with the local DWI court system, where again, like August through October, we have them come out once a week, if you know, up to once a week, and we find a variety of skill sets that way. And so that kind of keeps them engaged. They have to get hours. We usually vet most of our volunteers, but when they come out with a group like that, it's much easier to keep them going when the farm season is in its high season. We
Okay,
also use Sign Up Genius, and they can, you know, just sign up when we have open slots.
okay. Kelly, do you have any thoughts to share on if there's target populations for certain parts of the farm?
Yeah, and not necessarily for us. Being in the city, you have access to different people from different backgrounds. So we are definitely open. I think it makes our volunteerism much richer that we're able to, not just target a specific group. And kind of piggyback off what Melanie mentioned too, is kind of just finding those different tasks. And like, not to say that farm is all that they can do. We definitely encourage, like, hey, if you're good at fundraising, we got some grants here that we could definitely have you help us look through. So we are always open to other avenues that people can volunteer. Like, for instance, our last year, our holiday party, we got a new volunteer who does a lot of fundraising. So she was able to help us get some cool things for our raffle, some theater tickets and things like that. So we rely on what skill sets they have and how it can help benefit our programs. So.
And some
Okay,
of our students come out with their parents as well, to continue that volunteership after they've maybe graduated, or maybe they're looking for something more to expand their skill set. So we do kind of allow that.
okay. So it sounds like a diversity of backgrounds and diversity of socioeconomic situations results in a more diverse skill set generally for volunteers. Uh,
Mhm.
the internet's really changed the way that people find places to volunteer. Can you talk a little bit about how your marketing strategy impacts your recruitment of volunteers, especially with online marketing?
I know we obviously rely a lot on social media. Um, so that kind of helps get us a little bit of a boost there, people just checking out what we got going on. We also, I think just our programs that we do within the community, that's also great touch points for us. Cause like if we have something on our farm, like if we have a family garden day and we may get neighbors that come by and they say, hey, what can I come to the farm any other time? Like, yeah, if you want to come and learn about harvesting or whatever, you can for sure. So we get a lot of interest just by, front face interactions with our community and them learning about ways they can volunteer more too. So that's been really cool to see those transitions happen. But yeah, I mean, the old school flyers, we go to different events where we're tabling and providing resource. We'll have flyers at our table to talk about our opportunities as well. There's a typical little Google form that we create that people can sign up. And then what we do is we usually have like a little small screening interview that we do, nothing crazy, but just kind of knowing what they're looking for so we can then be able to help provide them with an enriching experience that we're just not saying, okay, you told us you want to do graphic design, but now we got you over here harvesting carrots. That doesn't match. So we want to make sure that it makes sense for them.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, I couldn't say that any better than Kelly did. I mean, for us, our weekly, it might be a weekly, it might be monthly. It depends on what the needs are, right? So just even that quick email outreach that shows pictures of our clients, our farmers engaged in these activities that we're asking them to do. those pictures tell 1,000 words, right? And so it's very easy to engage these different groups. And that's really our biggest strategy is the pictures, the social media. Our fund development director will go out and talk it up with corporate groups. And it's just amazing who will just walk in through our storefront as well. I actually was in the store working one day. This couple came in and they were actually working for another nonprofit. And through that, because my daughter had participated in an activity that they were putting on, we gained a volunteer because she just couldn't believe that we had these amazing opportunities in different contexts. Like she could put her specialty and give us her specialty. Like we don't turn anybody down if they say, like Kelly said, they might have said, oh, we love graphic design, but oh, accounting? Oh, okay. So.
Wow, that's interesting to hear how important word of mouth really is still to both of your recruitment strategies over an online marketing campaign. So, I think we're ready for our engagement portion. I just have a few questions about keeping volunteers engaged with the mission of your work. So we talked a little bit about scheduling volunteers in a way that lets people make volunteering parts of their busy lives. So how do you typically schedule volunteers? Do you prefer designated service events, or do you have more regularly scheduled volunteer shifts?
For us, it's just a matter of what is really going on. Like when our farm is open, for example, we usually have those weekly Saturdays. We have definite shifts that people are, might need to come out. Apple Fest is one of our biggest events of the year. And so we will schedule volunteers every 2 hours just to rotate them because we'll have like 5,000 people on property just shopping at a market and being on our farm location and downstairs. So the Sign Up Genius is pretty a good way. The emails are a good way to engage and schedule them. We actually have had some volunteers who, because they have a family member that has a disability, they want to come during the day and maybe work with students and just kind of learn a whole different way of working with the population. We have people that just want to come out and work in the community gardens and just, maybe they're working side by side an individual with a developmental disability, maybe not. So it just kind of depends. We're very fluid with our scheduling, in other words. It's based on what the agency needs, don't get me wrong, but we try to really work with the volunteer for sure.
Okay. Kelly, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, so similar to what we've done before is that we may have regular weekly events where they can come, like typically Tuesdays and Thursdays are our harvesting day. So we may say, hey, usually from 9 to 2, you're available to come here, do some harvesting. Wednesdays when we're packing for our food pantries and our CSA bags. So those are like our high points of when we can provide like an overview of a schedule for a weekly thing. And then we work with our corporate partners where we then may schedule out a big corporate work day where they're bringing out 60, 80 of their staff to do some work on the farm as well. So that's some things that we do throughout the year as well. And then just working with different groups, like we have our disability farmers program, where that group comes out weekly, and we know for sure they're coming Wednesday and Thursday between 10 to 12, and we kind of just create things for them to do and any tasks they can help us complete those days.
Okay. So it sounds like a commonality between both of your sites is that volunteers form a community where they can really find a source of joy and it becomes an important part of people's lives. How do you build enthusiasm and rapport among volunteers on the site to keep them engaged?
I would say like for us, whenever we're doing a volunteer day, like we'll do a good, introduction to Star Farm, kind of let them know what's going on, meeting the staff. And in addition, like whatever the task is, we try to make a connection to it. So like say they're coming to do something mundane, like filling our raised beds with compost, which can be, you know, not the most fun, but they make it fun. But kind of let them know like, hey, we're filling this bed so that we can grow about 1,000 pounds worth of rainbow chard to then pack for our pantry. So now they see that connection of why this work is important of what they're doing, and kind of empowers them to really want to do a great job too.
Mhm. I'd say for us, honestly, like the people that volunteer during the week, they get such joy by engaging with our adult farmers, even our students. So if we have a large corporate group coming out, we might actually invite some of our day program clients to come out. We might help provide like a box lunch or something like that, since we have our catering program. We try to just, make them feel really comfortable. But mostly the farmers are what bring them joy, brings the process joy, brings the work joy, and knowing, that volunteers are the heart of our mission, to be honest with you. So, I think just having a designated volunteer coordinator, and just kind of making sure that everybody knows what they are doing and have a purpose, it works really well to keep that enthusiasm up and all that.
And
Okay.
also, I would say it helps too to do like little fun barbecue. So like we may do a volunteer appreciation barbecue once or twice a year. And also like just mentioned with the food, we do like sometimes get them our free CSA bag and just ways to, say a thank you, for your time here. Because we know you could have been anywhere else, but, we want to thank you for that time.
That's really interesting. The best thing about growing food is that people love food. So now I have a few questions to ask about retaining volunteers for the long term. So urban food systems work needs committed supporters. How do you keep repeat volunteers or groups that visit regularly interested in the work that you're doing?
I would say with our corporate volunteers, that's pretty simple because they usually have their regular service days each year that they have to have incorporate their staff to do those. So those kind of make it a little easier to keep those engagements going. Obviously, as long as you just stay on top of them, just hey, checking in, say hey, I know it's beginning of the year, just trying to check in what dates you are looking for, so we can plan those out. So I think just making sure you're staying on top of communication with them, so they can still be engaged with what you all are doing. In addition to like our individual volunteers, what we've been trying to do is like in our regular staff schedule, we'll include our volunteers within that schedule too. So now they feel a certain commitment when they get the schedule as well. Saying, oh, my name's on there for 3 hours. Okay, I said I was going to do it, but now they know I should be committed to showing up on those days. So that's something we do. And also it helps us track our volunteer hours as well.
Yeah, the communication piece is really key. And if you have a certain project that you have in mind that's coming up, you might be able to tag, certain corporate groups. Like, oh, they might be really good at this. Like, for example, we recently knew that it was a dream to have a wheelchair ramp built so that we could get from the driveway up to the back 40, as we call it, the growing area. And we had a group come in who were a bunch of engineers, and they're like, we can do that for you. All you have to do is get the supplies. So sometimes you kind of have to think ahead as well so that you know what your big long-term projects are. We just are under construction actually next door from where I'm sitting right now. And that has all been facilitated by volunteers coming in and laying the floors and painting and cleaning and the whole thing. And that's really what keeps them engaged for the long term. And then they start thinking, they're looking around, oh, well, what else could we do here? So, we're hoping that we can get a good volunteer crew in the spring to get our hoop house back in operation, just as an example at the farm. But the communication is key, and just, those touch points of staying in touch. Even with people that just come, some of our court volunteers, some of them have actually come back and volunteered because they were not voluntold. So we love that about them. We had one man that came, and we're known for hot apple fritters during the fall season. And so we will sell like, 2,000 apple fritters, make a 2,000 apple fritters. And he just got really good at it. So again, he started out as a court volunteer, but because we kind of nurtured that relationship, we kept him for the long term.
Wow, okay. So it seems like the two big takeaways are consistent and clear communication with volunteers and
Mhm.
also encouraging a sense of ownership for the work.
For sure.
Those are very interesting strategies to keep volunteers interested in what you're doing instead of just having tasks that need laid out, but inviting them to see the future and the
Mhm.
future of the organization with them as a part of it. That seems really interesting.
Yeah. We also map out like what the monthly duties are at the farm. So anybody can kind of come in and look at the task list, and have that sense of taking initiative and fulfilling what the job needs are. They may not even have to check in with anybody other than we want them to check in, so that we can track their volunteer hours. I mean, we have over 500 volunteers, not including our students. So it's a lot to kind of track and maintain, but we want them to have, again, that sense of ownership. And so by having those independent tasks available, that also kind of encourages that retention.
Okay. Kelly, do you have anything to share about that?
Um, No, I think in regards to the task, yeah, I think that is a very important tool to use. So, they feel like they have a goal in mind. So usually when we do put our schedule out, we kind of put label what the task is within their time on the schedule. So they'll also let them know like what can they expect. Will I be outside or will I be inside? So I can know how to dress and also what to prepare for. So that is very helpful.
Okay. Okay. So we talked a little bit about scheduling, but do you have strategies that allow long-term volunteers to take on responsibilities within the organization beyond just being on schedules and taking on tasks?
It's a good question.
I
I
know,
think that
Melanie, especially you started as a volunteer. Maybe you could share a little bit more about your journey
Mm.
from volunteer to employee.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how well, my story probably doesn't match up with a lot of different people, but we had moved here from a new city, and I thought I was going to go back into teaching, and it didn't happen. So I was like, okay, what can I do next? I had to reinvent myself all over again. And so I stumbled across the farmer's house because of my daughter, and who was coming out for early work experience. And I all of a sudden just was like enthralled with the organization. So I started talking with the executive director then and finding out what tasks, what skills I had that, could make sense for the agency. We had 15 people at the time on our employee staff. So I volunteered for a good year before they said, we think we should pay you. So, anyways, I just kept kind of coming back. They couldn't get rid of me. I couldn't leave either. But that's a good thing. I really was engaged in the mission. And I think that's what's the important message is that, finding those key people that, um, it's hard to find someone who doesn't expect to be paid all the time. But we do have a couple. I had a couple of two moms who also had children in the program, and they wanted to come at different times than when their student was coming. So they have helped other classes be successful in making dog treats and making cookies and a variety of things that we make. And we've hired one now, and she's absolutely fantastic with the students. So I can kind of relate to her journey as well, both of these moms' journeys. That, if you find, I like to say that I like to find people's secret strengths and their talents, and then I utilize them to find out how I can keep them engaged long term. And they might become employees, but most of them stay volunteers.
And that's kind
Kelly,
of where I was going to lead into with any of our long-term volunteers. Like that's kind of a goal. Like, hey, if we can get them to transition to a paid employee, great. And it's happened, like one of our managers currently was a past volunteer. So it's been really great to see that transition happen. I think it's awesome when you can see someone who's just coming first to just provide support to our organization. And obviously we want people like that who are obviously passionate, and if they can become an employee with us, that's even better. So I think with our long-term volunteers, that's kind of where we hope our goals go toward. And even when we have like our interns that come through, like we would love to see them transition into employment as well. And then even if they don't go, they're not interested in working, we love to see them take on leadership tasks, whether they can help lead a group of volunteers for us. That's really helpful, especially when we have our big corporate work days where we have 80 people on the farm and they can kind of help lead a task during that day. We would love to see that ownership take place when they're able to do that too.
Okay, so you're sort of nurturing leadership. That's very interesting.
Mhm.
So we have a few wrap-up questions, and then we'll do some audience question and answers. So everyone listening to this webinar, you can feel free to drop some questions in the question and answer box, and we'll ask some of them to our speakers. So this is a big question for our conclusion. What is your number one piece of advice for those working in food systems to recruit, engage, and retain active and dedicated volunteers?
I just say communication, have a plan, know what your needs are, kind of, have that higher level manager who's out there looking at projects that need to be done. What do we want to grow next season even? Like I'm already thinking about what can we grow, and the garden manager actually before we closed down the farm for the season planted some garlic. So we're already prepping ahead for the spring. We're already thinking about what projects we need volunteers to do, not this coming month, but in the next 6 months. So, for me, continuous communication, even when the farm is closed, is super important.
Okay, so it doesn't stop in the off season. The communication is year round.
Year round.
That's actually the best time to do it, is the off season to secure the peak season, I would say. That's usually like our planning season for like volunteerism, partnerships and all that. And that's what I would definitely say is the biggest takeaway, is just leverage your relationships, even if it's your inner circle, like you got friends that may work for big corporations, say, hey, we offer these opportunities for you to bring your staff to come and get some volunteer hours. So I would just say that's the biggest thing, is like leverage those relationships and continue to build on that with, like Melanie said, with keeping that communication going and always consistent. So they can possibly get tired of you, but they can't say you weren't consistently bugging them about those opportunities.
Yeah, because if they're not volunteering with you, they're going to go someplace else, right? And if they've already developed that skill set for our mission critical needs, we just love to retain them and not have them anywhere else.
Right, absolutely.
Okay. Well, this has been very interesting so far. We've got a few questions in the chat box. So first, is there any specific websites that you go to find, especially those corporate groups? Or is that more of a word of mouth type thing?
Yeah, for us, it's been more of word of mouth and relationships. So like sometimes we have on our board, we may have members that are part of big corporations. We rely on heavily on our board. They can put in contact with those type of organizations as well. So that's been a big help too.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's mostly word of mouth. Again, if we're maybe even applying for grants, sometimes those organizations that we're applying from the grants, they become interested, like, oh, what are some of your needs? Like, and they also, so many companies have, those corporate work days now, but I've even had my friends come and say, hey, I want to organize my own little corporate group to come out. And it might be just their little section. It might not be the whole, organization. So, and, honestly, probably your leadership team is really passionate about what they do. So when you're talking to people in different contexts, whether you're at a party or you know, you're working the retail market, you're working in the garden. That passion is what really strikes individuals to be motivated to come volunteer for you.
Okay. So we have another question. Can you speak more about how to nurture the relationships without making folks feel like you're over communicating? I know it's easy to feel overwhelmed with emails.
Yeah. I would say maybe like, you know, obviously emails, it can be very overbearing, but sometimes it's just those conversations at a program. So, you know, you kind of more organic conversation that can happen as opposed to just sending an email every week or every 2 weeks to them. So having those opportunities to kind of just really express, you know, the volunteer programs that you have while you're at a cooking workshop at a school, or doing a pop-up market at a senior residence. So just things that we can find those creative ways to kind of engage people face to face as opposed to over the computer.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same thing, and just, you know, again, our social media that tells the story. We're not totally reaching out to just one person all the time to say, hey, you know, we need you to do this. We're trying to reach out to multiple people to see, you know, who we can get, so we don't feel like we're bugging them. But having said that, when our farm is open again, those monthly task sheets are just so helpful for volunteers to know what they can come in and they can do on their own. You know, we do ask that we know that they're coming on site, just so we're prepared to greet them and treat them just like any other staff member. So, you know, there's always something to do on a farm. Like Kelly said, you know, it may not be exciting, like moving mulch and, you know, putting compost in beds and, you know, things like watering. We have a lot of watering to do, right? Because it gets so hot here and dry. But those are important tasks. And I think when people can kind of see it laid out, you know, you're not over communicating in that way. They just know what the standard is.
Okay. Well, we talked a little bit about matching up volunteers and their skill sets with different tasks that need to be completed. So we have a question. Could you describe your onboarding, orientation, and training process for different tasks? So a little overview of your volunteer onboarding would be helpful here, I think.
So when we have people reach out to us, or we just, you know, gain a new volunteer, we have them fill out a volunteer packet, and they get to express what their interests are and what their availability is. And when our coordinator will reach out, kind of just have a nice little discussion to see when and where they can plug in and when they can start. Give them an overview if they're not familiar with what everything we do. And then schedule a time for them to get out to any one of our locations or activities to volunteer in. And then we always follow up with a thank you letter.
Oh,
Some
a thank
sort
you
of
letter.
or like a little thank you note. We have our farmers, we have an art studio as part of our programming. And so not our students, but excuse me, our clients, our adult clients, they make these thank you cards, and all of our farmers will sign them. And it's just important to, you know, send those out. Not every single time they volunteer, but definitely to make sure that we're touching base with them and thanking them appropriately. Our onboarding system's pretty, I don't know, pretty easy going. If we have a volunteer that wants to be in there for the long term, we may put them through a background check,
Oh, okay.
especially if they're working with our clients. So we have some social programs that we do. So we'll put them through background checks. Other than that, I feel like our onboarding process is pretty, it's not overwhelming, in other words.
Yeah, I would piggyback on that same thing. We do our usual, you know, they do their inquiry form. We schedule a 15-minute Zoom just to kind of learn their interests and kind of see where we could plug them. And then when they do get, you know, if they're doing farm work, obviously they do get a little bit of training. Like, so say they're coming to harvest, they will get maybe an overview of how the correct way to harvest, or if they're doing any processing, how that the safety protocols are around that, as well as the system for packing. So they'll usually that first day they'll kind of learn the gist of what they're supposed to do, and then usually once they're going through the motions, they kind of got that kind of got that down. I love the idea though, you just mentioned, Melanie, about sending doing the thank you cards, because that could be a really cool thing, and having your participants do that. I love that idea.
Thank you.
It's such a sweet personal touch.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have an employee that's sole responsibility is volunteer outreach, including recruiting, scheduling, and leading groups, or is that more of a shared task among employees?
Definitely shared. It's kind of with me, and then also our communications manager. They also help support that as well. Originally it was just me, but thankfully we got our communications manager. They were able to kind of help divvy out some of those outreach and coordination of the volunteers too.
Okay.
So we've had a couple of different models. So our administrative manager was actually the volunteer coordinator for over a year. And as her job developed, it just became, she was spending a lot of time on volunteer engagement. So a volunteer took over as the volunteer coordinator. And I think what's going to happen in 2025 is that our marketing specialist is actually going to take over some of those duties as well. One thing about nonprofit is that we all wear many hats. So like several years ago, I started out doing volunteer coordination and management. We have the ability to even track our volunteers and our donor base. A lot of our volunteers will end up giving to us, financially. And so it's a huge, it's a really huge component of the success and mission-driven activities of the agency. So sometimes we all end up involved in that volunteer management piece. Even, like Kelly said, we all become leaders in our own way. So I may not be responsible for it anymore, but I'm still expected to be a leader in that area.
Okay. So we have a question about working with different groups, especially schools. How do you navigate making those contacts? Do schools generally contact you, or do you generally contact schools? And then do you see retention of those student volunteers?
I know for us, typically it's been more the school reaching out to us. And I will say that the schools are probably our best retention. We usually have continuous partnerships with that. Specifically, we have one school where it's a workforce high school. So they're looking to get actual work experience, and they're coming on our farm. They're learning the planting. They're doing some planting. They're doing harvesting. They're doing some cleaning out of our beds. And I mean, these kids, they come in and they go straight to work, and they love it. So like, it's great to see that, and also just showing them like what they've done to the space and how much effort that they've put into it. And we also do a little thing at the end of their time, when we have like a little party, some food, just kind of like a little thank you for the time they put. Because we do want to show that, granted we can't pay them, but we want to show that we do appreciate the investment they did put into our farm.
So our model is a little bit different because our early work experience is all about us providing vocational training to individuals in classrooms where students have their 504, their IEP plans, individual education plans. So it's just a great place. It's a safe place for our students to come out and learn vocational skills, maybe learn about horticulture, planting and growing and harvesting, and then again, putting it into our catering if we're able to. So again, our goal in early work experience is to not only teach them those skills, but how they can connect that to the community jobs that are available. So it's our greatest hope that they'll become competitively employed after they've done all these potential years of volunteering with their school district. I do a lot of outreach with a variety of schools. We have expanded. I think we were into like 5 counties where schools bring their students for free to our farm and to our markets to learn these skills. And then sometimes we just have schools that reach out to us and say, hey, I heard from so-and-so that, they're coming out. Can we come out? And so schools will come out for an hour to 2 hours. It depends on their day, and come to the farm or come to one of our markets and learn those vocational skills. And that's also to prep them. There's laws in Missouri where students have to learn transition skills. So we kind of facilitate that whole program.
Okay. Now, I would like to direct our audience's attention to the chat box. There's a survey in there if you would like to fill it out and share your thoughts on this webinar. We do have a couple more minutes for questions if anyone has any last minute questions to drop in the Q&A box, but we have one. We talked about a sign-up genius, and that's super helpful for getting people signed up for volunteer shifts, but are there other specific calendars or other programs that you use to stay organized with volunteers?
That's pretty much our primary. If we have several tasks that are available, we find a sign-up genius, especially over it might even be for a weekend or it could be a month. I'm sure there's a lot of different programs out there. We use iPads to have volunteers check in. So it's a pretty easy input system. We use a lot of Google Sheets. We don't use anything fancy, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Same here. I think you're fancier than us with using the iPad for check-in. We're still doing sign-up sheets, so we're trying to get to there. We're not having tons of sheets of paper that we need to input into our logs. So, yeah, Google Forms, things like that, Google spreadsheets, and just to keep track of our volunteers.
Okay, well, if anyone has any final thoughts to share, I think we got through all the questions and answers. So any parting words before we let you enjoy the rest of your day?
Oh, we'd love to have any of the local K-State students that want to come volunteer and check out our farms. We'd love to have you. We'll be back open mid-March, April for the season. We've got community gardens again. If you know of anybody that, would like to have a bed, that maybe you've got family up in the Northland or whatever. But we'd love to have you come visit us for sure. I'd love to give you a tour.
We are pretty close. We're just over in Olathe, so that would be very fun.
I know we're not as close, but if anybody's on the call that may visit Chicago, especially in the summertime shy, can't beat that. So come on and come down to Star Farm, and we would love to have you there. You can definitely reach out to me, and we can definitely have you or a group or your family come anytime you feel it's available to you.
I'd love to come see you, Kelly.
I want to see you all as well.
Thanks for making
We
this.
definitely have to be in touch after this.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you.
both. We really appreciate you being here. This has been really interesting.
No, thank you for having us. This has been wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and let everyone go just a little bit early. Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good rest of your week.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.